Thank you. I want to welcome everyone here today. I'm Gary Mohr, Director of the Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, and I'll tell you what, it's going to be great to breathe life back into this facility. This is a great place. It's our newest correctional facility in Ohio, and Governor, I'm not sure there are many states that would be up here talking about the newest correctional facility in a state that's been closed for a year or two. So we're going to make this a great facility as well. You know, I'm in familiar territory to me. Right down the road at Marion Correctional Institution, July 1st, 1974. I see some familiar faces over there. I started my career in this agency, and it had a proud. I was very proud to be part of this, and I'm also very proud to be here today. What this event represents some tough decisions that we've had to make because of spending a whole lot of stimulus money to pay employees over the last 2 years in our agency. And as we're looking at this, we also have some significant violence that is taking place in our prisons that we cannot afford to reduce and become more crowded. So we can't afford to close our bed space right now. But what we can afford to do is to bring a blended correctional system into Ohio where we're learning best practices from each other, both state and private, where we're training together side by side, and where we're now bringing jobs to this community. So we do appreciate you being here for this day. And let me just say this. There's no way I could stand up here and do this without strong, courageous leadership at the top of this state. And I'm real proud. Let me just say this. I'm very proud to be working for the state governor, John Kasich, who gives us all a lot of confidence just to go out and do the right thing. Governor Kasich.
I first of all want to say that I've got a fantastic team of people that have really thought aggressively about how to get Ohio on the right track. Gary Mohr was asked, I'm told, they say third time's a charm. Well, in this case, it was the fourth time that was the charm, because he left a challenging but admittedly comfortable position in the private sector to come back into this. Last week, he had a town hall meeting with some of his employees, and you know, I like to say, when you look at a tough situation, which is what Ohio finds itself in, it brings out two different types of reactions to change in a difficult situation. Some people say, I'm going to be part of the solution, and I'm going to provide the leadership that is needed here to get us out of a tough situation. But there are other people that say, I just want to take care of me, because it's all about me. And I've been trying to urge Ohioans since the day I was elected, and urge Ohioans in my inaugural address in my State of the State, that Ohio rises and falls on the basis of whether we hang together as a team. And this is a time of great change. And rather than fearing great change in our great state, we need to embrace great change in our state. And we don't do it just for ourselves. We are doing it to preserve the legacy of being a Buckeye. We do it so that our children and our grandchildren are going to have a prosperous time in this state. And you know, you just look a couple weeks ago at the tremendous loss of population in Ohio. People who are the most mobile, some of whom who are the brightest, some of whom are experts in job creation, they're running for the exits. Running for the exits. Just really kind of breathtaking to see that the city of Cincinnati lost 10% of its population in the last 10 years, which means it's lost over 50% of its population since 1950. When we look at our great communities and we see the fact that people are leaving, where are they going? Well, they're not going to another suburb or another city, they're leaving Ohio. So we're faced with a situation where we've got to stabilize our situation in this state, and we've got to provide the incentives that we need to start to have companies in Ohio expand, and where we can begin to go out across this country and attract people to our state. And what will it take? It will take a drive to lower costs. That's exactly why we have a significant income tax cut preserved, and exactly why we cannot afford to raise taxes. We cannot put ourselves at a disadvantage because too many of the people in this state live in poverty. Too many people live in this state that are unemployed. Too many people live in this state that are homeless. What we need to do is to create an environment where the cost of starting a business and expanding a business is lowered, where our universities work with us to provide the research and development to develop new products, where we can encourage investment and risk-taking and entrepreneurship, something we think about every day. But in the meantime, we've got to stabilize the situation in our state. Gary Mohr brings an approach, frankly, that I think he was unwittingly trained for. Here he was, a warden in 4 prisons in this state, and he met some very significant challenges in the process. Desegregating one of the prisons in which he worked, trying to manage a whole institution 4 separate times, not easy. And then he left, and he went into the private sector, to the Corrections Corporation of America. I can tell you, as a person that left the government and went into the private sector, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because it gets you to look at the way things work in another part of the world that you are not really ever fully understand until you do it. That old philosophy that you just never understand what a person's going through till you walk in their moccasins is really true. And so what Gary has done is to take the knowledge that he had in the public sector and the great knowledge that he gained in the private sector to come up with a program. And I think it'd be fair to say, as Ronald Reagan used to say, you ain't seen nothing yet as it relates to the possible reforms that will come in this system that can bring the possibility of rehabilitation, that will bring greater security, greater safety, greater cost savings. Now we got to get through this first effort here. And so I can tell you that in discussions with people who are reformers, nobody's been able to figure out this corrections issue. The populations keep growing, the costs keep skyrocketing, and no one is satisfied. I believe that Gary is going to be viewed as a pioneer. He's going to be viewed as one of the great reformers in the country. Because what he's doing is he's combining the public system with the private system and taking the both of them. And so here at this facility, there'll be an opportunity to study what works best in the private sector and what works best in the public sector. And you know, there's nothing better than getting 2 people competing one another for best practices. Then you swap out the best practices. What works best over here? Well, we do it over here. And what works best over here? We do it over here. The level of violence that we have seen in our prisons is unacceptable. The fact that we are putting people, 12,000 of them last year, who were in prison for less than a year, in a prison next to people, some of whom will be there for 30 years, makes no sense. It drives up the recidivism rate, makes no one happy. So at the end of the day, we get some sentencing reform, which the state has wanted for a very long time. Somebody in the press called it Nixon going to China, you know. A conservative saying we need to have rational sentencing reform. I don't think that there's anything other than it makes common sense to put people in a setting where they can be more comfortable and we can save money. And Gary is going to make sure that those who are the most dangerous are still confined in our state institutions. But he's also advocating a program of a more community-based solution to people who have violated the law. When you put both of them, of these philosophies together, you end up with lower violence in our institutions. You end up with hopefully driving a lower recidivism rate by using rational thinking in the way in which we detain somebody. And the taxpayers in this state who have been battered over the years, they save money. So if you lower your violence, if you have best practices, if you put people in appropriate settings and you save money, the question should be, why have they never done this before? I'll tell you why, because this place has been mismanaged. But now we're bringing management. And the management that he represents this is a man, I tell you, I just so love him because he's got such a good heart and such a good brain. And I have to tell you, it's not an easy job, but he's doing a great job for this community. Mayor, commissioner, state senators, state representatives, it's going to be really good here. Because this is the other item I didn't even mention. When this prison is sold, it will become a revenue-producing institution for our community, and there will be more people hired. Well, Karen Gilmore has been very, very upset about the economic conditions in Marion. She sent me a note a couple weeks ago saying, you have to go to Marion. It's tough. People are leaving. The unemployment is staggeringly high. And today is a day when we announce some good news for this community. There'll be more jobs, there'll be more revenue, and things will improve. And we're not going to stop here, of course. We're not just going to rebuild Marion with the privatization of the prison. We need to rebuild Marion because they're God-fearing, common-sense people here who have an entrepreneurial attitude. And we got one just standing right back there in a Save the Children's tie. I mean, and we got to think about the things that we need to do in this part of Ohio to make sure that we're going to bring Marion back. We have to do it. I mean, we can't afford to have Marion continuing to slump. So I think this is a good news day for everybody, the taxpayers, the people that will be placed in these institutions, ultimately for the best thing for those that are confined, to lower the violence rate. A lot of good things here today. And again, it's a new idea. You know, when it came out, there were people leaking stuff, trying to damage our program. It's all part of the way that some people operate. That's that group of people that are selfish. They need to get a little better. You know, say your prayers. Become part of the team. But the bottom line is here that we are moving this in absolutely the right direction. And when the news came out, oh, selling 5 prisons, people are like, what does that mean? Ohio must get used to change if we are going to survive. The old way, the status quo, weak, avoiding decisions is not acceptable. If you do it in a business, you fail. If you do it in practicing your own personal health, you get sicker. And so we have to step up to the challenge. And when we do, we're going to get better. And that's what this is really all about. This morning, of course, we have the mayor here. We've got the county commissioner. But they're important to me, but not as important as Jeff McClain, Dave Burke, and Karen Gilmore, because I need their votes just about every single day. So for the rest of you, I care about you, but I love them, okay? Plain and simple. You know, the other thing that I'd like to say is that we got a lot of things going at once. When these things happen, when they get approved, we're all going to find ourselves over time in a much better position. Senator Gilmore.